Hello and welcome to Records Rebuilds. Today we're going to be talking about 4 key pieces of information from the NCM Bash that I did not get the chance to put into last week's video. One of them, the fourth one, of course, I thought was the most important piece of information I took away from the Bash. It's very important if you have a C8 or a C8 Z06. It's something that could cost you up to $4,000 if you don't know about it, and it has to do with the brake-by-wire system in the new C8. So we'll get to that at the end. The first point has to do with the release date of this car, whether or not the Z06 is delayed. I mean, just after my last video came out, I saw another thing saying it's delayed till February. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and we don't know. Maybe it will be delayed, but as of right now, Chevrolet's still putting out material that says the car will be released this summer. So I thought, just to kind of put folks at ease, let's take a look at the timetable between when the C7 Z06 was first announced and when it was actually produced, and let's see what that looks like compared to what we're up against with the C8 Z06. Now, nobody denies that the pandemic delayed this car, but as far as from the time it was announced to the time the first units are produced, there is not a delay so far. Okay, so I can't take credit for this because it's lifted directly off of MidEngineCorvetteForum.com, but I did check out all these dates, and you can go to Google and check them all out yourself. They are correct. The gist of it is, if you look at the C7 Z06 production and development timeline, it fits really well with the current C8 Z06 development timeline. Now, nobody denies that the car did get delayed by COVID, but once they announced the car at the press release, everything has been on schedule since then. With the C7 Z06, it was first announced January 13th, 2014, with a pricing announcement September 1st, 2014, and production starting November of 2014. So if you apply that same timetable to us today, which I'm not saying you should, we live in completely different times, but if you did that, then you would expect to have pricing information somewhere around end of May or early June, which is what we've been predicting for a while here. And then, of course, you're going to see production starting in July and the first deliveries in August. Now, we don't know if that will be true, but it just goes to show you the car is not delayed. They said it would come out summer, and it's going to come out summer. So I know it feels like we've been waiting for 5 years. It feels like this is crazy how long it's taking. It feels like, oh man, they're going to make the price really high. That's why they're waiting so long. But the pricing isn't even any later than what we saw with the C7 Z06. So just hang in there, relax. We're almost there. And I think this is all going to be a distant memory pretty soon. Okay, on to item number 2. You may have heard that it does say in the C8 manual that you should not park the car or store it for prolonged periods of time with the top in the down position. So somebody asked Harlan about this, and here's a video clip of him explaining that that's probably a holdover from an earlier manual, and that in fact you can park the C8 with the hardtop convertible in the down position for as long as you want.
On the C8 convertible, in the owner's manual, it says don't leave the top up, or don't leave the top down when you park it. Is that just for getting leaves in it, or people putting things in you want to, don't want to, or is there a heat soak reason for leaving the top up when parked?
No, there's no issue really. It's more just to keep the car clean, and to be honest, it's probably a holdover from the owner's manual from the previous convertibles. Where we worried about the cloth. So you know, keep it closed, keep it safe. But there's no issue with if you leave it in.
It's a garage.
And on to item number 3, a few additional tidbits about the LT6, the beating heart of the Z06. I thought Josh summed it up perfectly when he said, if somebody asks you why flat plane crank, you say volumetric efficiency. It's not about the sound, That's a nice benefit. It's not about the revs, another nice benefit. It's about how do we get the most air into the engine in the most efficient manner to create the greatest amount of power. It's about creating power. You may remember a few months ago we had a video about the Helmholtz resonator that sits on top of the LT6, those two tunnels that sit on top of the LT6, and how they have valves between them that can change the resonance of the air flowing into the engine depending on the RPMs and improve volumetric efficiency even more. I got a video that shows exactly how that works, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so if you look at this model here on the cutaway, you can see the front two valves open this way. They are tied in tandem to each other. And then on the back side, let me see, there you go. That valve opens in the reverse direction. Here's our LT6 cutaway. Of course, this is the combustion chamber down here, and here is the intake where air is flowing into the combustion chamber. Here's the exhaust port where gases are leaving the combustion chamber. Normally, up around here, you'll see fuel injectors. But on this engine, the only GM engine I know of that's like this, the fuel injector is on the exhaust side of the combustion chamber. Chevy says this is because the little bit of increased distance before the fuel meets the air allows for better atomization of the fuel, and that increases volumetric efficiency, what we've been talking about this entire time. As you can see in this picture here, there's no fuel injectors in the valley, which leads to this really open appearance when you look down the middle of the engine. And you can see those Helmholtz resonators are incredibly tall. They're really taller than what a supercharger would be. Okay, so item number 4, the big one. It has to do with these guys. Only on the C7 here, this is a hydraulic brake system that's actuated by a regular master cylinder with a booster, like any normal power brake system. But with the C8, it is a brake-by-wire system. So I sat in on a lecture from Paul Kroner, who is just an absolute ace Corvette mechanic, knows everything about these cars, has just real fire and passion. You can look him up on Facebook, and he's got a lot of good videos out there that you can watch. But basically what he was saying, and there was a GM rep in the room who agreed with this and verified that it is true, is that if you're changing over to track pads or you're changing rotors for use on the track, and you've got all 4 wheels off, you've got the calipers off, you've got the pads out and the rotors out, so that those brake pistons are just free in there to do whatever they want. If you walk up to the car with the key fob in your pocket, it will eject all of those pistons. He said he had a customer who actually did that, ejected all the brake pistons on all 4 wheels, and it cost upwards of $4,000 in order to fix that. Now, I assume they must have replaced all the calipers instead of trying to put new seals in and everything for it to cost that much, but that is a possibility. So what's the solution? Well, the manual, the repair manual says, before you start the brake job on a C8 Corvette, you need to disconnect the battery. And that's all it is. It's just that simple. You've got to disconnect the battery before you try to change brakes or pads. Otherwise, you run the risk that you could walk up to it with that key fob, the car's going to check and pulse the brakes to make sure everything's working well, and boom, you are in big trouble. Thanks for watching, guys.